Welcome back. It's episode 4 of the Creatine Show. This week I've pulled together 3 topics that cover things that are happening online in the social media space, covering influencers and some Instagram things that have landed on my radar and that I've been interested in and paying attention to. Thanks for joining me again. My name is Rachael. I do an episode of the Creatine Show every week, alongside running my business Generise together with my dad, and this YouTube channel is just a place for me to share some topics that are not necessarily related to our business, but things that are important, interesting, and sometimes I just want to have a place where I can share that online. So thanks for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started and talk about how there is seemingly a pink tax on creatine monohydrate. And so this week it was brought to my attention thanks to an Instagram post, and I kind of was following this for a couple of days. And so if you don't know what pink tax is typically when a brand will offer the same product but do a version targeting women and a version targeting men, and the version targeting women will be priced higher and packaged in a typically quite a cliche way to appeal to a female audience. And so if you didn't see this post this week, it was brought to my attention because people that I look up to and admire in the industry were liking it and reposting it. And so it's originally from Andrew Coates on Instagram. Andrew Coates Fitness, I believe, is his handle on Instagram. And he shared a picture of a very specific brand that's available on Amazon in the United States. And the name is Havasu, Havasu. And the specific picture that I'm looking at right now, I will share it in the links below in the description when I put that together afterwards, is that they sell creatine monohydrate as a powder, unbranded, a commodity creatine. And they have gone ahead and launched this in 2 different categories on Amazon, and the one that fits into the women's health category is priced at $24.95, I believe. And then the green packaging, which is not targeting women or anybody in specific really, is $17. So there's a big difference there actually. And for the women's creatine powder, as they're actually calling it and blatantly putting that on the front packaging, they've gone for an entirely pink look. And it's important to understand that there are no other supporting or complementary ingredients in the women's version of this. There's no collagen or iron or protein that might be interesting as additional benefit providers for a female target audience of consumer. This is literally just creatine monohydrate in 2 tubs, the same size, offering the same thing, but one of them is pink and it's about $7 more, and one of them is green, generic, and costs less. Now, this is interesting because I do personally really believe that there's so much research and attention and care that needs to be done and given to women on the top about creatine. However, I am not a believer in the need for women to be sold creatine that's just standard but packaged up in a way that looks a bit girly, feels familiar, and has a higher price tag. That's just fundamentally not right, and it's quite manipulative, to be honest. So what I would recommend is that if you are a family who wants to consume creatine and supplement it, you just need one for the whole family. You can use the same one that your husband takes, that your partner takes, and then if you have children in the house, everybody can consume the same creatine monohydrate supplement, just a standard powder. There is no need for you to have a different one that costs you more and to keep it separate from the one that the guys in your house are using. And so the price difference is about a 40% markup here, which is high. And when you're talking about this being a 60 serving tub of 5 grams, that's going to add up. And over the course of a year, a woman will be spending much more than a man for the exact same product. And it's unflavored, and as I mentioned, it doesn't have any other benefits or additional ingredients in there. So I give credit to Andrew Coates because it's a nice call out for a specific example of the pink tax happening right now in the creatine industry. And I also learned that there is roughly a 60 to 70% pay markup for women in the wellness industry in general. And then I would also say that we are sometimes pushed to maybe feel like we need more things than men. And so if you're paying more, buying more, then the brands are just earning a lot more money based on your gender. So anyway, there is no evidence that there is a need for female-specific brands. Creatine is creatine. The only way that we're going to change that is if we fundamentally revisit and change the way that creatine monohydrate is actually synthesized and manufactured, and maybe at a molecular level we're able to improve something that makes creatine monohydrate be more suitable, more bioavailable, and more beneficial for the female body. But as of today, February 2026, that doesn't exist, and all creatine monohydrate is exactly the same. I'm not talking about degrees of purity and quality here, but in terms of the benefits that it, will present. There's no need for women to buy a specific pink package that costs more. Of course, you do have the flip side to this, which some men were also commenting about openly on the Instagram post from Andrew, which is that the same thing can happen in the opposite way, which is that brands may package a creatine tub to appeal more to a masculine, macho audience and increase the price there quite highly as well. And so you'll see these different personas being targeted to pay more just based on an aesthetic. Of course, I'm a product girl. I love a good brand. I love a good visual aesthetic and identity. However, it's also really important to understand when you're just being taken advantage of potentially and paying more than necessary purely just for the colour of a packet and your gender. So anyway, there is a flip side. Men are speaking up and it's happening in the other direction as well. But again, at the end of the day, everybody in your household, male, female, can take the same creatine monohydrate. If you want to have your own little stack with some female-specific products, I know that Array has a creatine blend that has some additional ingredients in it. I haven't tried it. I actually don't think it's on the market where I live at the moment in Belgium, but that would obviously be something that you want to look into specifically to get a multi-benefit product, all-in-one type of thing. But unfortunately, this powder from Havasu is just standard and being repackaged. So be aware. And also, if you're a brand watching this, please don't do that. Please don't do that. And just stay true to the benefits of creatine and highlight the fact that they are across the board very, very great for both male and female consumers. So moving on to another sort of internet space topic, which is that I'm curious what's going on with these really high profile wellness podcasters and influencers resharing a lot of research and information about many ingredients, not just creatine. And they carry it in a way whereby you believe it's their research, or they're sharing it in a way whereby it's almost like they're taking ownership of this information, and they are not referencing original scientists, original studies, the names of these people that actually work in the labs at the universities and do the work, or the names of the original studies either. Of course, creatine has gone really mainstream online in certain areas in the last year, and almost every big scale wellness podcast has done an entire episode on creatine, and then probably also had large segments of other episodes referencing creatine if the topic was brain health or the topic was muscle. Creatine has come up in the conversation more than ever before, whether you're listening to really big top level British podcasts or American ones. Creatine has been a big topic this year, and some of those episodes have also been some of the most viewed episodes that those shows have had. But what I'm seeing is that we maybe are not being discerning enough in terms of who we're giving credit to for understanding the benefits of creatine. And so there's this slight focus on monetizing the information and not necessarily the creation of the information. And so it's important to understand that when a researcher comes on a podcast, they are probably being employed by the university where they sit on the faculty, but not every podcast pays guests, but the host will be earning on clicks. And these big shows, they know how to make a impressive thumbnail, they know how to do the title of a video, they do A/B testing in the first 48 hours with different thumbnails, and they try to get as many clicks as possible. And they're carrying this research information and this study stuff about creatine, but it might not be their own research. However, it's just something to be aware of, and something that I have been discussing with my dad this year, and also discussing with some of the researchers that we work with at Generise, and also just people that are my friends in the industry. And so I think it's okay to see wellness influencers as a way of packaging information. And of course, maybe sometimes they have a more natural type of charisma that you're drawn to. They're nice to listen to. They maybe look great on camera. And so, yeah, it can be very informative to listen for an hour to somebody like that explaining things. However, it's important to understand that potentially the ad revenue and the clicks and the brand deals and the sponsorships are earning them much more on information that's not theirs than the person who actually put the academic back work into discovering this stuff in the first place. So just keep that in mind. And I'm aware that many people are becoming a little bit more discerning about high-level fitness podcasters and people that have developed a strong personal brand in the wellness space. But please go ahead and, as I always say, look at the profiles of the actual researchers. Follow them. When a paper comes out, they'll post it, and that's your source of truth. And then it gets diluted and shared around across the different platforms as the year goes by. But you have, in this day and age, also direct access to the people doing the research, which is fantastic. Many of them also do videos and webinars. So, of course, I have a couple of my favorite, sort of personas that share this information and do interviews and what have you. But let's just make sure that we're not idolizing the wrong people or placing a lot of credit on influencers that may not have actually had anything to do with the research themselves. So they're spokespeople for it, they're good at presenting it, they're good at packaging it up for us and talking for 50 minutes on this topic, and it's very exciting. But go ahead, and I encourage you to take a look and see actually who are those names on the research papers, and can you follow those individuals as well. So anyway, is it for health or is it just for clicks, is what I am getting at here. And the second topic is actually now the third topic, is something else that I've been seeing popping up on social media, which is a certain type of reel wherein practitioners, nutritionists, dietitians, don't know if they're actually qualified, but they're, showing themselves as being that in their Instagram bio, and they are trying to create some sort of rage bait and sort of blow the lid off how creatine is manufactured. And so I've noticed this specifically will be like a list of things, and they'll mention, the truth about like sunscreen, or the truth about, eating certain things. Seed oils is always on there. I love the seed oil trope. But it's becoming a little bit more repetitive for these types of reels to also say creatine is not a food. It's a, feedstock chemical that's like, really, really toxic. And it's trying to just get a reaction, right? Those kind of posts come up in your For You page or what have you, and they do garner a little bit of attention. However, this focus on exposing the synthetic production of creatine as if it's some sort of conspiracy isn't real. There's nothing to blow the lid off there. Creatine has been, manufactured and synthesized in the exact same way for more than 30 years. The creatine that my dad took to the Olympians in 1992 was manufactured in the same way as it is today. Nothing's changed there. There has been no shift from like naturally sourced animal-derived creatine to some sort of conspiracy chemical cover-up whereby it's now synthetic. And I just find that a little bit funny, because nobody's trying to hide that creatine as a supplement is synthetic, that it is manufactured in huge scale industrial chemical plants, either in Germany or in China. Nobody's trying to hide that. I have questions about it as well, and there's a lot of elephants in the room around that, but it's important to understand that it's nothing to be scared of. Ultimately, as a consumer, creatine is safe, it's been approved. All of the research shows that the benefits way outnumber and outweigh any potential harm that it's going to cause you. And as long as you are consuming a certified, high quality, trustworthy creatine that has been produced and manufactured in a safe environment, that has been rinsed appropriately so that it doesn't have large quantities of any heavy metals or other contaminants in it, that's just the way that it's produced in terms of a supplementation product powder goes, okay? So I'm going to reiterate this because I feel like there's no need to act like it's a secret. Everybody knows this. Of course, we do have creatine in the diet, naturally occurring. That's going to be in beef, fish, especially herring, and also sardines. However, within those animal protein sources, it's natural, of course, yes. And then we have also endogenous creatine, which is naturally occurring in our own bodies. It's completely self-produced, and it's largely coming from your liver, your kidneys, and your pancreas. Also completely natural. However, in terms of supplementation, nothing has changed yet in terms of where we get creatine from. Many years ago, if you listened to our webinar in December, the origins of creatine, like 200 plus years ago, did come from meat extracts. And this was before creatine was really even identified as a molecule. But the concept of meat extracts has been around for quite some time, and that's also where household products like stock cubes and the concept of bone broth, OXO cubes, things like Maggi sauce as well, I believe, that's what came out of all of that sort of awareness more than 100 years ago. However, we don't produce creatine like that for supplementation. It is always coming from a chemical manufacturing company. They most likely also produce other chemicals, sometimes ones that have nothing to do with nutrition or human wellness and performance. And that's just the way that it is. But I don't think it's anything that needs exposing or that there's anything to create rage bait about. And I've just noticed that it's kind of not necessary. And so just to be clear again, creatine is synthesized, and you do that, and these companies do that, by bringing together sarcosine and cyanamide, okay? And it is vegan, it's stable, and when done correctly, it can also reach very, very high purity rates above 99%, yeah? And so while the powder is a chemical compound, the molecule is completely fundamental. It's found naturally in our bodies and the bodies of animals, and so that's just the truth. Maybe something will change in the coming 5 to 10 years, we'll have to see. But I really don't think it's anything to act like it's a secret or that people don't know. Anyway, that's everything I had for you this week. What have you been noticing on social media? There's a lot going on nearly every day. There is an announcement, a new product, some research, some sort of trend for reels, etc. So next week I'll touch on some different topics, but I wanted to put these 3 together to have a bit of a cohesive theme for you this week. Thanks for following along. I'll see you again next week, and I hope you have a good one. Take your creatine, and I'll see you next time. Bye.